very busy shopping centre. Just a moment ago, the Kenyan Secretary for Interior said the security situation was, as he put it, under control. He's urged people not to speculate on the nature of the attack. The official count is now 11 people killed and more than 30 injured. However, the Kenyan Red Cross has said it's at least 22 who have been killed. But the Interior Ministry adds most people have been evacuated from the shopping centre. Most people. I mean, still the facts are few and far between. There is one witness suggesting that at least 36 people are being held hostage inside, but that's a long way from being confirmed. Those images showing the attack unfolding, but the standoff still taking place at the scene. And a short time ago, my colleague Maxime Mawini spoke to one witness, Surajit Borkakode, who was trapped in a coffee shop in the shopping centre during the gunfight, and he described what he had seen and heard.
Okay, this incident happened at around 11:45 to 12 p.m. today, 11:45 a.m. to 12 p.m. today, and me and my wife, we were there at the bank. There is a bank at the first floor. We were at the bank. We just came out of the bank and we went to the top floor. There's a coffee shop on the top floor of the mall, and we were just sitting there, and suddenly, all of a sudden, maybe at around 12 o'clock, we started hearing gunshots on the first, second floor, maybe on the ground floor and the first floor. And it suddenly turned into a war-like situation. People were just, we could hear, continuous gunshots. And then we ran towards the rooftop parking, which is adjacent to that coffee shop. We just went outside and said, all of a sudden, somebody started firing on the rooftop side as well. Again, we came inside the coffee shop, and people were just running here and there. It was a total chaos, and me and my wife, luckily we got inside a cupboard in that coffee shop. And, after some time, one of the employees of the coffee shop, he just called us, why don't you come to inside the kitchen? So there were many people. We all went inside the kitchen, and they blocked the kitchen doors and everything with their refrigerators, big refrigerators. And, all of a sudden there, it was in such a chaotic situation. Me and my wife, we got inside a storeroom. Almost 17 people were there in this very small storeroom. We were trying to just block the door. And, there were many people. Children were there. They were just crying. There were, old people were there. And we just closed the door and we were there. And, we got stuck for almost 2.5 hours. And we could hear continuous gunfiring going on. It was like, if you could realize that it was like a war situation, what we normally see on the television when there is a war, and it was like a war situation, and it was a cross-firing. People were crying, running everywhere, and somehow we were there inside. We were just inside. We are hoping that we can get out of this situation or from the place alive, and hopefully after 2.5 hours, the Kenyan police guys and the armed forces people, they came in through the staircase. There is a fire exit and a staircase in that mall, and they came us, and they were in the plain clothes. So people were just, there was a panic in the people. They were just mistaken identity, and the people were just panicking there. And finally they just identified themselves as a policeman, and they just took us out through the staircase. And we are very lucky that we got alive, and we were out alive on the streets, and we just came out of the mall, and I had to walk almost maybe around 500, 600 meters away from that mall. Then I just took a taxi, and we just came to a relative's place. And we left our car and the keys and everything on the parking, so we couldn't get anything. And after that, once we were on the street, we could still hear, there were continuous gunshots and gunfiring going on. And it was like when you see an automatic weapon in a firing, and a continuous rounds of firing can be heard.
Well, a sense of the terror of that attack there from one witness who was in a coffee shop. Our correspondent Emily Buchanan is with us now. Emily, what is the Foreign Office here saying?
Well, they're monitoring the situation closely, they're saying. They don't have any details as to who's involved, who's killed, whether any British nationals have been involved. They just don't know yet. They say they're in close contact with the Kenyan authorities, and William Hague, the Foreign Secretary, has said his prime consideration is the welfare of members of the public caught up in it. But they certainly warn members of the public in Kenya to avoid the area.
It does certainly look fairly certain now that this is a terror attack, and obviously fingers will point to al-Shabaab, the Islamic group in neighbouring Somalia. There is good reason to suspect them, isn't there, because of past...
Well, absolutely. In fact, going back to the Foreign Office, I mean, for a couple of years now, they've been warning of the terrorist threat in Kenya. I mean, ever since Kenyan troops got involved in pushing against al-Shabaab over the border inside Somalia, which is where they're from, and they're linked to al-Qaeda and so on, there's been fear and anxiety about terrorist attacks inside Kenya. And there's a lot of worry that there are sympathisers of al-Shabaab inside Kenya. Assuming this is a terrorist attack, it certainly looks as if this is the sort of exact situation that the authorities have been worried about for a very long time. Attacks on areas where there are foreigners, high profile. I mean, we've had other attacks on churches and various incidents like that, and kidnappings and so on. But I mean, such a high profile attack as this, it looks like quite in a sense, a spectacular on behalf of the terrorist organisation, assuming it is there. And
you mentioned the kidnappings. I mean, there's the likes of the Chandlers who were taken by al-Shabaab, the two who were on board their yacht and taken by them off Somalia. This is different, isn't it? I mean, there is one suggestion of at least 36 hostages. Now, that is a long way from being verified, but if it is on anything like that scale, it is relatively unusual. It
is unusual, and I think this will be testing the authorities in Kenya to the limit. I mean, whether the army, how they're going to handle that situation, and we've had very difficult situations. You may remember the Algerian siege against terrorists, and that was handled in one way by the Algerian authorities. I mean, who knows what's going to happen here, whether they're going to go in, whether they'll storm the place, whether more people will be killed. It's a very, very dangerous situation. But it certainly doesn't look like a sort of normal robbery.
OK, well, Emily, thank you very much. Those pictures from the time when this attack happened, there are currently no agency live pictures coming from the scene. There was a request, certainly, as our reporter was telling us in the last hour, by the security services to stop broadcasting live at the actual shopping centre. But we will keep you in touch with what we hear.